Okay. I mean, look at this. That's a beautiful sweet potato. If we're talking about the amount of space that these are taking up, we've got about 3.5 square feet of space, and then our vertical space, and that's it. Guten gardening, everybody. Right beside me, we've got a GreenStalk original garden, 5 tiers, and each one of those tiers has a different variety of sweet potatoes, and I'm ready to harvest this after about 3.5 months of these being out here growing. Now, I don't know what to expect. Some of these varieties are newer varieties to us, and last season we did grow sweet potatoes in our GreenStalk, and we got some sweet potatoes. I'd like to say that we're definitely going to do better this time around, but there are a couple of things you should know about these sweet potatoes. First of all, about halfway through the growing season, I came out and I was watering these, and as the water was sinking down through, a couple of voles jumped out. Now, I think I got to them early enough that they probably didn't have much in the way of sweet potatoes to actually come and eat. Now, the way, in my opinion, you have to think about the GreenStalk vertical garden system is as stacked container gardens. And I want to make that clear because we have 10 inches of depth here for the mix that we have these sweet potatoes growing in. And that's great. But because it's a container garden, it means that it's going to dry out faster than if you're growing in ground. And we've made this very clear that 2 points during this summer, we left home for an extended period of time. So there were multiple times where we were completely dependent on the natural rainfall to keep this particular garden watered. And so I don't know if that's going to have any impact on it, but I want to make that clear before we get into the harvest. But now I'm going to go ahead and pull this bed apart, and we're going to take a look at each one of these tiers and each of these varieties of sweet potatoes and see which ones perform the best for us. All right, let's go ahead and start pulling this apart. All right, our top tier here is a Beauregard sweet potato, and interestingly enough, it seems like there's some new growth here in the middle. I'm wondering if that's coming off of one of the sweet potatoes underneath, because I said that this is supposed to be about 3.5 months, or about 115 days from the time of planting. And the Beauregard sweet potato is one that only needs about 90 days. So I'm wondering if some of this in here has started to sprout again. I guess we'll see here in a little bit. The way I'm gonna handle this though, I'm not cutting anything off. I'm just gonna flip it upside down, and we'll see how this top tier did, see if we see anything underneath that looks like development. All right, we'll see if we see anything in here that looks like it's got any size to it. I see plenty of roots. Ooh, there we go. Now, one of the questions that came up and has come up many times with regard to growing things like potatoes and sweet potatoes in GreenStalks is whether or not there's enough depth in there. These look pretty nice. You can see there's plenty of depth for the size of these. I guess an even bigger question might be, though, whether or not we can get enough size out of these. I mean, these look pretty great to me in terms of sweet potatoes, and if I didn't have the capacity, yeah, look at that. If I didn't have the capacity to grow sweet potatoes in multiple ways, this could be definitely one of the options. Now, these are not massive. This, pretty good size. I'd like to see more out of here for sure. But as I mentioned, you know, as these were growing, I'm sitting there thinking, are those multiple days, multiple weeks away in the middle of their growing cycle going to have had some impact on their overall size? Now, that being said, ooh, I feel something pretty nice down in here. That being said, I mean, how many of you grow sweet potatoes already? You can see this. That's a pretty nice little bunch, huh? That's what we're looking for when we talk about Beauregard sweet potatoes, something around that size and up. How many of you grow sweet potatoes already? How many of you have tried growing sweet potatoes vertically? That's another piece to this that I think is really important to note, that what we're doing here, ooh, nice. What we're doing here is we're trying to expand where we can grow sweet potatoes, expand how many sweet potatoes we're getting out of our beds. All right, there we go, our top tier harvest for our Beauregard sweet potatoes. These look great. There's not a single bit of vole damage so far. I love that. All right, our second tier down, we've got Vardaman sweet potatoes. Now this has a lighter skin to it, but these potatoes are more compact. They're supposed to be more compact and more of a bush type variety. And when we first started growing Vardamans, one of the things we found about them, see, it's got that really kind of golden, almost golden looking flesh. But when we started growing Vardamans, we started in part because we were told, we read, that they were supposed to be a type of sweet potato that didn't crack too much. And that's nice. That's really nice right there. It's a nice Vardaman. And so we found that to be mostly true. I think really, if it gets really wet at the end of a growing season, you may end up seeing a little bit more of the cracking, so you got to avoid some of that. But what we've definitely seen from our Vardamans here, or what we've enjoyed, I should say, is just how tasty they are. And they typically take a little bit longer, about 110 days. So when I put all these different varieties out here to grow, I waited a little bit longer maybe than I might have for example, the Beauregards, just so that we could have all of them about done. And actually, one of the reasons why I'm harvesting today is because last night the temps were about, ooh, okay. That's beautiful. That is absolutely stunning. The temps last night were 42 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not, I mean, it's fairly close to freezing. It said the actual feel of everything was about 34 degrees, and that's pretty close to freezing. And so when I came out this morning and took a look at these plants, it seemed like they were getting ready. They were fading fast, I'll say it like that. They were all wilted, and so I decided, let's go ahead and get this harvested so we can go ahead and be done with this one. I don't want to run the risk of losing any of our sweet potatoes to frost damage. And sweet potato plants, they say that the sweet potatoes themselves can handle a gentle frost, but what we've found is that they don't last as long. Certainly they don't last as long in storage if you have frost hitting them. There we go. All right. Hey, not too bad at all. I'm telling you, so far this harvest is superior to last year's harvest for our sweet potatoes, at least through 2 tiers. Take a look at some of the size of the sweet potatoes we got out of here. These are beautiful, beautiful, and they're going to be so delicious. So again, if we're talking about the amount of space that these are taking up, we've got about 3.5 square feet of space, and then our vertical space, and that's it. All right, next up we have Centennial sweet potatoes, and apparently this is like basically one of the most common varieties grown in the US. And if you notice, these are a vining variety. They really spread out, but if we have them halfway up or higher on our GreenStalk, that means that they can dangle down, and so we don't really see that expanse of space. Now apparently Centennial sweet potatoes are one of the most popular in the US, and they are nicknamed baby bakers. Isn't that interesting? Baby bakers. Ooh, right. So they have a lighter skin like this, and then inside is almost like a carrot orange color. That's what we're looking for. See some more of those in that size. I am noticing something interesting about this third tier. The weight of this tier was not that much, and the mix in here is pretty dry for some reason. And what's interesting about that is that when I went down to the fourth tier was less dry, but I can definitely feel something really nice right here. See how easy this harvest is? Oh, there's another one. There's a couple. Oh, they're attached together. Beautiful. Oh, it's the same one. It's the same one, but it looks like it's basically attached. You see how easy it is to harvest these GreenStalks. So just pull the bed apart, harvest one tier at a time. Yeah, oh, a lot of roots in this one, but not so many that blew up, that really elongated and expanded the way we'd like. This so far is our least productive bin, which is interesting, again, considering this variety and how much people are supposed to enjoy it and how popular it is growing here in the US. It's supposed to take about 90 days, but from what I can see, we're not getting too much out of here. Well, the other bins have definitely made up for this one so far though, so I think we'll be okay. And we're still getting a couple in here. We did a taste test of a few varieties 2 seasons ago. We did a sweet potato taste test from baking, and I think I want to, because we have other new varieties again, I think I want to try another taste test video where we look at some of these new varieties and do a bit of a comparison and see what we like out of the ones that we grew this year, the various varieties. And we do have sweet potatoes growing in other spaces as well, so it's not like, you know, if I don't get a ton of sweet potatoes out of this tier, it's going to ruin everything for me. That is definitely not the case. I will say though, again, look at all the roots. Do you hear this? This was not what we were experiencing in the first 2 tiers. This is a vastly different tier. That actually looks like a carrot. I promise it's not, but that one definitely does. All right, let's move on to our 4th tier, because that's another new variety, and I think we've got just about all we're going to get out of tier number 3. This is another first for us. We haven't grown this variety before. I have no idea how these are going to turn out at all in our growing zone. I can see one here on the top, a small one there. We'll see if there's more inside. But the white Triumph is a white-skinned potato, and it's white on the inside as well. Ooh, okay. You know what? We grew some Okinawan potatoes before, some purple Okinawan sweet potatoes that were white on the outside and purple on the inside. These are white all around. It's almost like a golden color. That's beautiful. It's a nice size to it as well. And I'm really hopeful that this vining variety is going to be a nice producer for us. There we go. It's another nice one. All right, not a ton on each of these, but the ones that I'm seeing so far are a decent size. Again, one of the things we look for when we make a determination, and we have the white Triumph growing elsewhere, we look for the overall yield from the sweet potato. We look at the taste, we look at the size. One of the things that I've noticed about the white Triumph though, and it's growing, as I said, in a couple of different spots, it really hasn't taken off in terms of plant development in the same way that some of our other sweet potatoes have. So I'm wondering how well this is going to perform in our other beds as well. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I think the key for growing sweet potatoes successfully in a GreenStalk is making sure you have plenty of nutrients in there, because that 10 inches of depth for most of what we're seeing here is enough to create, I mean, look at this. That's a beautiful sweet potato. So there's enough depth there at the very least to create some nice sweet potatoes. So making sure that you get as many to develop as possible, consistent watering, making sure that you don't have the periods of dryness like we did this time around. All right, let's see what we ended up with for this tier. Well, there you go. There you can see our 4th tier down, these white Triumphs. Some pretty nice size to some of these. Let's go ahead and check out tier number 5. For our 5th and final tier, we've got some bunch Porto Rico bush variety sweet potatoes. This tier is another one that felt a little bit dry, but not as bad as that 3rd tier. So we'll see what we've got inside from these. Smaller response here from this first one, and this one definitely looks like it's about to start growing again. But you see that whitish yellow flesh? That's what we expect from our bunch Puerto Ricos. We expect that lighter yellow. Oh, they're kind of growing right into here. A lighter yellowish flesh, and the inside skin is like a lighter color as well. Somebody once wrote that this reminds them of their childhood, this particular variety, in terms of the taste of sweet potatoes. I don't know. I will tell you this though, this one is not, so far, not looking that great in terms of turnout. If we look at a positive, are you kidding me? Okay, I can't go a single potato harvest without one of these walnuts, and here we are in our sweet potato harvest, and I'm getting the same thing. Okay, I'm not seeing much size at all from this bush variety. This bush variety actually takes 115 days, but you can see there's not a ton of development, but you can see what would have developed right down here. So in the time that we gave them on this side anyway, there's not much there. If we look off to the other side, we've got a couple in here. Still not that big. I would say this and our third tray are disappointing. And one of our commenters on a recent video where we were talking about GreenStalks and what we were doing with our potatoes, one of our commenters said that he often grows marigolds in that bottom tier instead of trying to get some other kind of production. And the reason he does that is, marigolds have a pretty good tendency to protect your plants from a lot of the critters out there. And so he said that's a great way to use that bottom tier too. It's beautiful and it prevents critters from getting up into your system. Well, that is the worst I have seen production wise, I think ever, maybe, for sweet potatoes anyway. All right, so that bottom tier, that was a bust. But let's take a look at what we got throughout the rest of this GreenStalk garden. So in my opinion, the first, second, and fourth tiers produced quite well. I mean, I'm pleased with these results. Our third tier was okay, but probably half of what I would have liked to have seen. And then our fifth tier got some scragglers in there. But as I mentioned earlier, we have lots of other sweet potatoes planted elsewhere in the garden. And as long as they perform, we're gonna be just fine. But I guess that leads us to the question, a simple question, is this the ideal way to grow sweet potatoes? Well, I think you could probably find other methods that may work better. But if you're striving to grow sweet potatoes in a small space and you have room for the circumference of one of these GreenStalks and just a little bit of height, this might be a great way for you to get into growing some really delicious sweet potatoes. Look at this. This is going to be some fantastic eating here over the next couple of months. And remember, with sweet potatoes, one of the nice things is that they stick around for a while, so you don't have to eat them right away. And they do definitely change taste some as they start to cure. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed today's sweet potato harvest video. We are going to be growing indoors in our GreenStalks as well, and we've got some colder weather coming pretty soon, so stay tuned for that content. We've got a whole bunch of other sweet potato and potato harvest videos coming your way as well, so if you love a good harvest, stay tuned. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.